Welcome to the Gnaana Deeksha program, a program designed, executed only for the benefit of you students. My name is Gresina and I am a teacher of English at the Telangana Social Welfare Residential Schools, Shamirpet. Today I am going to take you on a tour of the topic of the session, which is tenses. But before that, I would like to tell you an experience that I had this morning. Well, this morning when I was driving to the TSAT office, I noticed that the roads that used to be usually very busy are just deserted, absolutely empty. I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I never expected that these roads will be so empty. And then I also felt, oh my God, how would it be if people are not on the roads? And then while I was driving, I started to think, it is so different and difficult when people are at home without coming out. Yes? I'm sure you're all safe at home and you're right now sitting here and watching the program. Yes? All right. So I just told you about my experience. I hope you understand the emotions that I spoke about. Yes? Right. You were able to understand it because I was able to express it that way. The sentences that I framed were very clear, short, and at the same time with the right tense. And that is the reason why you were able to understand it that well. All right, on that note, let's then get started with our session on tenses. But before we start, I'm sure you would be asking yourself, what's in it for me? Why should I listen to this session? Well, I have very good points to tell you why you should listen to this session. Point number one, it's important you listen because this is going to help you in your examination. Point number two, it's also going to help you communicate effectively. Yes, communicate effectively with your friends and with your family members. All right, so let's have a quick look at the slide and look at the objectives of today's session. So by the end of this session, you will be able to understand what a tense is, know the different types of tenses, differentiate these tenses, and practice these tenses. Right. So to understand these tenses in greater detail, yes, let's listen to a story. Right? Yes. So this is a story of Rahul. I'm sure you're able to see the slide. Yeah. So this is Rahul for us, and Rahul is a very intelligent child. He's a very smart and he loves wearing red. Now you must be wondering why Rahul always. The previous session, English session, also we had Rahul, the hero of the session. But the reason I chose Rahul is Shah Rukh Khan's name is always Rahul in all his movies, which were a super duper hit. So I hope this session is also a hit, and that's why Rahul. Okay, all right. So going back to the story of Rahul, that's Rahul. He is 13 years old. He loves studying. He loves solving puzzles, and he also loves finishing his Summer Samurai project. How was Rahul 10 years ago? Let's have a quick look. Yeah. So 10 years ago, if you see, Rahul was 3 years old. He was a very curious child. He used to ask a lot of questions and he never liked studying. Yes. Let's take a sneak peek into Rahul's future and see if Rahul's the same, right? So 10 years later, oh my God, that's Rahul in a pilot's dress. Yes, he's become a pilot. So Rahul always used to tell me, Gresina madam, I am going to become a pilot, or I will become a pilot when I grow up. And that is the reason, he worked on his dream, and if you have a sneak peek into his future, you see that, he's become a pilot. So what was I referring to all through? I have been talking about 3 different phases in Rahul's life. Yes. So if you look at it, I looked at the past, the present, and the future of Rahul. Now what was it that decided which was the past, the present, and the future? Well, if I have to write down the sentence, he is Rahul, yes, And then when I went to the past, I said he was curious. Yes. And then I also told you that he always told me, I will become a pilot. Right? So if you look at these three sentences, yes, you will see that the structure of the sentence is very similar. The only thing that has changed is the verb. Right? So what does that tell us? That tells us that the verb is the one that decides the tense of a sentence. All right? So if you look at this slide, you will understand it better. You will see that the verb tense, you have three parts, all right, or three forms, the past, the present and the future, which are further bifurcated into simple, continuous, perfect and perfect continuous. Yes? All right. So let's try and understand these tenses in greater detail, and that too in a way that we are able to understand easily. Right? So you see that I have written the three sentences on the board, right? And the first sentence that I said, he is Rahul. All right? That is in the present tense. Now what is a present tense? Simple present tense. If you look at the slide, a simple present tense talks about the activities that you see there on the slide. Well, if you see these people doing a lot of activities. So a simple present tense talks about activities that happen on a daily basis. It talks about activities that are, a part of your habit, that are rules, that are facts, truths. Yeah. For example, if I were to talk about a universal truth, like the sun rises in the east, which tense is that? You're right, that's the simple present tense. Okay. You should wear a mask. That's right. Again, a simple present tense. When you talk about your feelings and emotions, again, I am happy. He is curious. He is excited. Yes, again the simple present tense. So how do we form the simple present tense? Again on the slide if you see, it is nothing but the subject is, am or are plus verb, or verb plus object. For example, if you look at the sentence here, here is the subject. So what's the subject? Subject is nothing but, it talks about who the sentence is about, right? The hero or primary, what is the sentence all about is the subject of the sentence. So here he is the subject plus, like I said, if you look at the structure, is or am or are or any verb, all right? He walks to school, right? Or any verb plus object, right? So that is the simple present tense for us. Yes. Now what about the simple past tense? Well, if this is the simple present tense that talks about an action that happens, that happens in the present, it also talks about, a habit, all right? For example, I wake up early in the morning. Okay, I go for a walk every evening, right? So that is an activity that happens regularly as a part of my habit. Yes. Now, similarly, when I go to the simple past also talks about an activity that happens regularly in the past as a part of a habit, but doesn't happen now, all right? Or it also talks about an action that has happened in the past. For example, yeah, if you look at the slide here again, people rode in sedan chairs 100 years ago. People used lamps in the evenings 50 years ago. Yes? Right. So, like I said, it also talks about a past habit. I used to go for a walk when I was a child. All right. It also talks about a past action. He was curious. So, if you look at the structure of this sentence now, he again here is the subject plus, like I said, you have the was or the were or the past verb. plus object. Alright, so that is a simple past tense. Very easy. Yeah, I used to go to school. We used to have the assembly at 8 in the morning. Now you are at home. You are under lockdown. You don't have school, right? So something that used to happen regularly in the past doesn't happen now, or something or an action that has happened in the past and not now. So that's the simple past tense, right? Okay, so let's have a look at the simple future tense now. If you look at the slide again, yeah. So what does it say? To speak about the future, you can use the following phrases. So like I said, Rahul told me that I will become a pilot. So the simple future tense talks about an action in the future. So the word that you use here is will. I will be a doctor. I will be a pilot. I will become a pilot. Yes? Right. So again, if you look at the structure, you have subject plus will, yes, or will be, plus base verb. The verb here that you will use here will be a base verb. Now, a base verb is nothing but a V1, the first form of the verb, okay, plus object. Right. Now, you must also be wondering, well, Gracina showed us a slide that says going to, right? Now, why did I show you that slide? Because though the structure is that of a present continuous, still we use it to talk about our future. For example, I'm going to buy a car this month end. Well, I don't think that's going to happen because of the lockdown. Let me frame a better sentence. I'm going to stay at home, right? Okay, now let's move on to trying to understand what a continuous tense is. All right. So, like the word says, continuous. Continuous is nothing but an action in progress. Okay. So, if I have to talk about the continuous tense, well, a very simple way of identifying a continuous tense is to talk about an action that is going on or that is in progress. An action that is in progress in the present is a present continuous tense. An action that is going on right now. An action that is, happening these days. All right. For example, what is it that's happening? Right now, I'm taking a class. Okay. I am taking a class. What are you doing? You are watching me. So let's write that sentence down. Yes? So when I say you are watching me, here, this is the subject plus am or are plus verb ing. So this is the structure of the present continuous tense. We are traveling, okay, in our personal vehicles these days. Okay, we don't have public transport, right? So if we have to travel, we have to travel using our personal vehicles. So this is a temporary period. This is not going to happen for life, right? So that is the reason we will use the present continuous tense, saying we are traveling by our personal transport these days. Okay. If you want to talk about an action that's happening right now, like I said, yes, you are watching me, I am speaking right now. Yes. So this is how you frame a present continuous tense. So just to summarize what I said, let's have a quick look at the present continuous tense slide. Yes. So even in the slide, if you see, students, you will realize that there is an action that is happening. What are they doing? Well, you will notice that there is one person who is singing, one person who is dancing, one person who is eating something, Yeah, so there is an action that is going on. All right, so a present continuous tense talks about an action that is in progress. Okay, right now or temporarily. Okay, so that is present continuous tense. What about the past continuous tense? Past continuous tense talks about an action that was going on in the past, at a point in time in the past. Right? For example, what is the time right now? 12:30. So 12:30 yesterday, what was I doing? Yes, you are right. I was watching television. I was watching the Gnaana Deeksha program, and I was watching one of my colleagues taking the session. Yeah? So it talks about, a past continuous tense or a progressive tense talks about an action that was going on in the past. Okay? So I write here, I was watching television. Again, so the structure here is subject plus the past verb. So was or were. Now what are these? Was or were or am or are? They're helping verbs, right? Auxiliary verbs. Yes? Plus, yes, verb ing. Yes? Right. So similarly, if you look at what is the future continuous tense. So if past continuous tense talks about an action going on at a point in time in the past, present continuous tense talks about an action happening right now, point in time in the present, then future continuous tense should be, you're right, an action going on at a point in time in the future. All right. So if you look at this slide, tomorrow at this time, what do you think I'll be doing? 12:30, 12:45 tomorrow? I will be cooking, or I'll be washing some clothes, or I will be, taking a class for my children. Well, the difference is I don't have 3. I have 2. Yeah. All right. So a future continuous tense, tomorrow I will be, if I don't do all the 3 activities, then I will be watching television, right? So what is the structure here? The structure is subject plus will be plus verb ing plus other words. So when I say plus, it's other words. Here as well, here as well. Right? Whew. We've already finished 2 set of tenses, the simple and the continuous. So let's take a small break from these tenses, okay? And let's try and listen to a story. Do you know the story? If you look at the slide, the story of the elephant and the rope. Okay, so I will tell you the story then. So I happened to visit Sri Lanka some time ago, and there at one of the elephant orphanages, which is at Pinnavala, I happened to meet a gentleman, and this gentleman was telling me about all the elephants that he had rescued in the couple of years before I met him. Yeah. And one of the things that he told me is he was wondering how these elephants, though they're so strong, are not able to free themselves from these people. So I said, they're so huge, they're gigantic, and how can they not free themselves? So you just had a look at the slide, right? There's an elephant, huge one, and there is this tiny log there, and then a small piece of rope. And that rope is stopping the elephant from moving away. Miracle? Magic? Well, let me tell you the truth. So these elephants apparently, when they are babies, when they are calves, they are brought and one of their legs is tied to that tiny piece of rope and that log. Now, when it's a baby, it tries to free itself, tries its best to free itself. But because that rope and that log is strong at that time, because it's tiny, it's not able to free itself. So it tries again. It tries for about 1 month, 2 months, and then it decides, it gives up. It decides and thinks to itself that come what may, I don't think I will ever be able to free myself from this. So it creates a fence. It creates a block in its head. Yeah. And these elephants tend to grow that way, and when they grow up this huge, they still remain in that place, and that tiny piece of rope is still restricting their movement. Fair? No, right? Actually, it is 100 times stronger than that. Yeah. Well, this is exactly what happens to all of us. Yeah. We try once, we try the second time, the third time, and then after a couple of attempts, we give up. We say, no, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I will ever be able to do it. And that's the block that we create in our heads. And then, when people try to question you, you say, no, I don't think I can do it. But trust me, my dear students, there's nothing that's called impossible. Everything is possible, only when you're able to put in that effort. Now, if you see this, look at the situation happening right now, the lockdown. Yeah, all of a sudden the schools were closed. The students could no longer go to school. So because the students couldn't come to school, what did the society do? It thought out of the box. Yeah, there are so many blocks, but still we thought out of the box. Yeah, Praveen sir thought out of the box, looked for various other opportunities, and now the school has come to you. Yes, so nothing is impossible, my dear children. So you remember that always. All right. Now if you're wondering, why did Grisina tell me about all this? Well, because my next 2 tenses are dependent on this story. Right? So the next tense that I'm going to talk about, if you look at the slide, is the perfect tense. Okay? So what does a perfect tense talk about? Yeah? A perfect tense talks about an action that is made complete or completely done. Alright, so it is formed by the appropriate tense of the verb and the past participle of the verb. Okay, so if you look at the board, let me erase this off for your benefit. Yes, so if this is the timeline, the perfect tense talks about an action that has started and that is over, it is complete. Now what is this timeline? Well, this is the future. Yeah, let's say this is the present, and anything behind here is the past, right? So an action that is complete, it's over. An action that is complete in the past, so the past of the past action, and an action that is complete in the future. All right, so that is a perfect tense. Right, so when you are framing a perfect tense, we use the past participle of the verb. Oh my God, past participle sounds very complicated. But for students who are in 7th, 8th, 9th, I'm sure it's not very difficult, right? So what's a past participle? Past participle is the third form of the verb. So I have a few examples here for you if you look at the slide. Right? So if you see, you have verbs which are regular and irregular. A regular verb has an ed in the second form of the verb and the third form of the verb, An irregular verb changes its, changes the way it's said. For example, if you look at it, you say go, went, gone, right? But when you look at the word live, lived, and lived. Yes? So here are a few examples, and when you frame a perfect tense, you only use the past participle of the verb. You have to remember that. Okay? So many times I see you making mistakes with this. My idea or my suggestion would be, please make a note of verbs and write their second form and the third form, because it will help you in your conversation. All right? So let's now have a look at the present perfect tense. So like I said, an action that is complete in the past, but it has a relevance to the present. For example, if you look at the slide here, what do you see? Yeah? What has happened here? Have they been able to solve the case? Now, both these statements are in the perfect tense, in the present perfect tense. But for you students, I want you to tell me, what do you see in that picture? You're right, there is an accident. It's an accident. It's a car accident. So, if you look at the sentences that we frame here, well, you will notice that you will say the car has hit the lamppost. The car has hit the lamppost. Let's write that down. Okay, so the car has hit the lamppost. Is that action over? Yes, the action is over. But why are you still talking about it? Does it have any relevance to the present? Does it have any connection to what we are talking about right now? Do you think when the policewoman has, if you look at the, excuse me, if you look at the lady in the picture, the policewoman, what do you think she must have asked that lady there? She must have said, what has happened here? Yes? And the lady there must be telling her, oh yes, I was driving and then I suddenly realized that there was a lamppost. I did not know how to turn and I went and rammed into the lamppost. Yeah? So the car has hit the lamppost. It's over, but it still has a relevance in the present. We're still talking about it in the present. Okay? The elephant has been tied for years. Is it tied today? Well, maybe, may not be. But until yesterday, yes, of course. Yeah? So, it's an action that is complete and it has relevance to the present. Okay? So, that's the present perfect tense. Now, what about the past perfect tense? Why do we use the past perfect tense? Well, a past perfect tense talks about actions that have happened, or an action that has happened later in the past, or the past of the past. For example, to help you understand, now there are two pens here, two markers in my hand, action 1, action 2. Okay? Now, when these two actions have happened in the past, which action has happened first and which action happened next? To decide that, we use the past perfect tense. Now, if you look at the slide again, yes, what do you see on the slide? You see Rahul running for the bus. Was he able to catch the bus? Was he there on time? No. By the time Rahul reached the bus stop, the bus had left. Yes? So, that is the past perfect tense statement. Okay? So, let me write that down. By the time Rahul reached the bus stop, the bus had left. So, I said two actions in the past, right? So, you have two actions that happen. Rahul reached the bus stop. Yes, that's one action. And the bus had left. That's another action. Now, which action happened first? You're right, the bus had left. First the bus left. After that is when Rahul reached the bus stop, right? So, I told you past perfect tense talks about the past of the past. So, what's the past of the past here? This is past and this is the past of the past. Yes? So, that is the reason in order to sequence the action we use the past perfect tense. Right? Okay, so for both these statements, what is the structure? So, for a present tense, subject plus has or have. If it's a negative, hasn't, haven't. Okay? Plus V3 plus other words. Similarly, subject. Okay, so if you look at this, subject plus had, yes, plus V3 again. So that's how we use, that's how we frame. Right, let's look at the future perfect then, an action that is complete in the future. Okay, so if you look at the slide here, I tried to include some mathematics here, right? So if you look at the story, a short story here. Rahul is a voracious reader. He takes 4 days to complete reading any book. He visited a library today and borrowed 3 books. He is supposed to return the books in 7 days. How many books do you think he will have finished reading in 7 days? Yeah. So, one book he takes 4 days. And now how many has he borrowed? He's borrowed 3 books. Yes. So, would you think he would have finished? No. Rahul will have finished only 1 book. Plus, another book he would have started, right? So, how many books do you think he will have finished? Well, he will have finished reading, okay, he will have finished reading only 1 book. So, if I write that sentence, he will have finished. Okay. So, again, subject plus will have plus again what is the form? V3, the past participle form. So, if you see students, yes, you will realize that for the present, for the past and for the future perfect tense, we use the third form of the verb or the past participle. Okay. Now, why do we use it? Well, like I said, just summarizing the perfect tense because it's a little complex. Well, you use the present perfect tense only when you want to talk about an action, though it is over, you still, it still has a relevance in the present. Okay, you still want to connect to it. I have visited many countries. So, am I in another country right now? Not sure. But is it an action that's over? Yes, it is over. Okay, but do I still want to talk about it? Yes, I want to talk about it. I still want to have, a connection with that. If I say I had done that, then I have finished it, done, dusted, I don't want to have any connection, and that is the past perfect tense. Future perfect tense, like I said, talks about an action that is completed in the future. Alright? Fine. So, let's now move on to the next tense, which is the continuous, perfect continuous form. Right? So, if you look at the slide here, the 3 perfect continuous tenses in English are the 3 verb tenses which show action happening during a period of time. Right? So, it talks about a an action happening during a period of time. If you look at the slide here, okay. So, let's try and understand that the way we understood the perfect tense, right. Okay, so let me tell you, dear children, of these three tenses, it's only the present perfect continuous tense that is very commonly used. The past perfect continuous or the future perfect continuous is not used as commonly as the present perfect continuous. Okay, so if you're confused, if you're worried, so don't worry too much, because we don't use it so much while speaking, right. But it's always good to know how you frame it and why you frame these sentences or these tenses. Okay, so going back to our timeline, this is the present, so anything after this is future, anything before this is the past. Yes, right. So when I'm talking about a perfect continuous tense, I want to highlight the period in time. I'm trying to highlight the period in time. So if I want to talk about, oh my God, you know what, I spent 2 hours working on it. Okay, so I want to highlight the 2 hours that I spent doing something. If it's in the past, I had been working on it for 2 hours. So I want to highlight my effort. I want to highlight the time, and that is the reason I use the past perfect continuous. I want to highlight the time that I have spent, okay, in doing something. I have been preparing for this session for the last 2 weeks. All right. What does that mean? It means that continuously I started preparing here sometime in the past, 2 weeks ago, and then I have been doing it. And even this morning, do you think I was not preparing? Yes, I was preparing. Yes, so I want to highlight that. Purna has been working very hard, you know, to break another record. Yeah, the management, the leadership in the society has been working very hard to improve our techniques, okay, to bring better learning techniques, to ensure that we learn better. The difference, the distance between the learner and the teacher is lessened. So this is what's happening. So when you use the present perfect continuous, when you want to highlight that, yes, you will talk about the future perfect continuous when you want to highlight something that is going on in the future for a period of time. All right. So let's have a look at each one now. Like the time frame here. Yeah. So if you look at the slide here, present perfect continuous tense. Yes. What do you think you've been doing for the last couple of days? Since 24th, okay, what have you been doing? You have been watching the Gnaana Deeksha program, right? Yeah, we have been watching the Gnaana Deeksha program for the last couple of days. What are the people in the picture doing? They have been waiting for the bus for the last 20 minutes. So when I say, I have been waiting for you, which means I am trying to highlight. I can also say I waited for you. I waited for you for 10 minutes or I waited for you for 20 minutes. But if I choose to say, I have been waiting for you for the last 20 minutes, I want to highlight the amount of time, which is so precious for me. I spend that time waiting for you. So that's what you need to understand. I have been working on the Summer Samurai project. Yes, which means you made so much of an effort, right? And whenever you talk about the continuous tense, perfect continuous tense, it talks about a time frame, since or for. Yeah, since talks about since yesterday, point in time. Period of time, well, for the last couple of hours for the last 1 year. Yeah. So that's how you talk about it. Right. So let's look at the structure of a present continuous tense. So like I said, you have been, okay, while I say this, you don't say been watching. It is been watching. The pronunciation is been watching. You have been watching this program for the last, let's say, 30 minutes, right? Or more than that, yeah? So what is the structure? Subject plus have been, has been or have been, yeah? Plus verb ing, yeah? So the continuous form does not have the V3. Please get that right, okay? It does not have the V3, it's the verb ing. Right. Also, something that I have noticed is, let me say that. You can also say, instead of saying you have been, you can connect the you and the have and contract the have and say you've been watching, okay? You've been watching this program for the last 30 minutes. I've been watching the program for the last 30 minutes. I've been running this program for the last 30 minutes. Yes? Right. Now, how about the past? The past perfect continuous. Right? If you look at the slide, the past perfect continuous tense talks about an action, like I said, talks about an action that was in progress at a period of time in the past. So, if you look at the slide here, what is here? The boys had been playing soccer for about an hour when it started to rain. So, it started to rain, but before that for for a good solid 1 hour, the boys, what were they doing? They had been playing soccer. Do you like soccer? Do you know what soccer is? Yes, that's football. That's right, yes. So, instead of football, you can say cricket. Yeah. So, when you're playing continuously and then you suddenly hear your mom, come have dinner, come have lunch. So, before that, what you would have been playing there for such a long time, right? We had been playing, before my mother called me for lunch. Yes. So, that's how you frame the past perfect tense. How about the future perfect continuous tense, right? So, all of you here, very brilliant students. I'm sure very soon you're going to finish your school and you're very soon going to join universities. So, if you look at the next slide, in 5 to 10 years from now, you will have been studying in one of the best universities in the world. Doesn't that sound interesting? Doesn't that sound amazing? Doesn't that sound exciting? Yes, it does. Yes. So, you will have been studying. You will have been studying, yeah, in one of the best universities. So, after 5 years when after 5 or 10 years when I call you, or when we cross our paths, and then when I ask you, what are you doing? There's quite a possibility you say, I'm studying here, or I'm on a scholarship, or I'm, doing a part-time job in this university because I'm doing my doctorate in that university. Yeah? Yes. And that can happen only if you really work hard and give in your best. Yes? Only when you can break that block, take that block off your head. Right? Yes. So, let's look at the structure here. The structure here is subject plus will have been plus verb ing. Now, if you are wondering why didn't Gnaana madam write the past perfect continuous, let me write that down for you. I had been playing for 1 hour before my mother called me for dinner. A complex tense, but good to know, okay. So, subject plus had been plus verb in the continuous form, verb ing, and so on. Yeah. So, that is the past perfect continuous tense. Now, all in all, I have taken you through a tour of the tenses, right. So, I hope you have understood, check my sentences, okay. I hope you have understood what I spoke to you about, what I told you about, or the tour that I have taken you on, yes. So, based on that, here is the project work that I am just about to give you. So, it is time for an activity now, and please make a note of these 2 activities. Yeah. So, make a tenses chart along with examples. How many tenses? Primarily 3 tenses, which are further bifurcated into 4 each. So, 12 in all with examples. And then I told you about a story of the elephant, right, and the rope. So, I would like you to write a motivational story like that of your own with the appropriate tenses. Okay, so, that is your project work for this summer. Yeah. Right. And I know now that I still have about 5 minutes before I finish. So, if you look at the slide, yeah, are we ready? All right. So this is a story about a headmaster and his son. Okay. Now, this headmaster's son was one like you all, no, a very very energetic, attentive, and very active child, okay, and always had questions. Now, this headmaster's son always wanted to know why people in his village always thought high about a sage in that village. So, do you know what who a sage is, right? A person who is considered very wise, who people go to for advice, a piece of advice. So, this boy, he never liked that so many people in the village would go to this sage and seek advice from him. He thought, come on, education is is the most important thing, and my father is a headmaster, so our school is the one that can impart a lot of knowledge. So, why should people still go to this man? And he wanted to prove this man wrong. Okay. He wanted to tell people that he is not as wise as they think he is. So, one day what he did, he invited all the elders of the village to the school, and he said, you know what, I want to prove that the sage is wrong. So, I want you all to come to this school on this particular day. So, everybody gathered. Now, what happened? He also invited the sage, and he said, you know what, I'm challenging you, I'm going to prove you wrong on this day, so you please come here. Now, the sage only smiled because he did not know what to say. This boy was maybe a 13-14-year-old boy, and the sage was quite old, both in experience and wisdom. Yes. So he just smiled, looked at him and smiled, and he said, okay. So that day came where everybody was seated, and then this boy entered the hall. Now, you know what this boy did? Yeah. So my school knows about this story because I told them once. But, this is for the benefit of everyone. Yeah. So what happened? This boy, he goes outside and he catches a bird, a sparrow. Right? And he catches it, holds it in his hand, and keeps it right behind him. Okay? And what he does is he holds it with both his hands. Okay? So he takes that. So if I were to show you, this is how he does it. He holds it like this. Yeah? So what he does, one hand he holds the neck of the sparrow, the other hand he holds the body of the sparrow. And he's covered it so much that nobody in that gathering could see what was in his hand. So what he does, he goes to the sage, and in front of everybody, mind you, everybody's actually right there present trying to see, and the headmaster is already very embarrassed because of what his son is trying to do. So what he does, he goes to the sage and says, okay sage, you think you're very smart and you think you're very wise. Now, I'm going to ask you one very simple question. Can you tell me if the bird that is in my hand is alive or dead? Now, the sage looks at him and he says, he thinks for a minute and he looks at closely into his eyes intensely. And he says, with a smile, he says, okay. But before what he says, you know what this boy thinks in his head? He thinks, if the sage says that it is alive, I'm going to just twist the head this way and the bird is going to die. And I'm going to tell the sage, the bird is dead. Okay? But if he says the bird is dead, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to show the bird and say, you know what, you're wrong. The bird is alive. So both ways I'm going to win. Right? Now, you know what the sage says here? He looks at him closely and he says, the bird is going to be what you want it to be. If you want it dead, it will be dead. If you want it alive, it will be alive. To this, the whole crowd starts clapping and the boy is so confused. So what's the moral of the story? Okay. If you look at the slide, please have a look at the slide here. It's in your hands now. So the bird that was in the boy's hand is in your hands, and the bird is the learning that you got just now, the learning that was imparted to you. Now it's in your hands. If you want it alive, you can keep it alive. You can learn, you can make notes and start using it. But if you want it dead, well, just twist it. You can walk out of the room without making any notes and just forget what happened in the last 1 hour. So what do you want to do? It's in your hands. You decide whether you want to keep the learning, alive. So thank you very much, students, for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this session and you learned something out of it. I'd really like to know how you felt. So please stay safe, stay home, and have a great week ahead. Thank you very much.